Hello, this is LaSawyer, and this is Chapter 4 of Stephen Covey's Principle-Centered Leadership called Primary Greatness. Those of you that know me know I like to try new technologies, and so for this presentation I'm trying something new called Office Mix, which is an add-in to PowerPoint, and I'm trying it because research tells us that when viewing a presentation, if you can see the presenter, that there's a little bit more connection. So I thought I'd try Office Mix and add my video as I go through these slides. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Primary greatness is greatness of character within. In other words, our private victories always precede any public victories. And he likens trying to build our personality without that character base, similar to growing a plant without any roots. You cannot have any fruit without those roots, and those roots are our character. Having that self-discipline and self-mastery are the roots of all of our positive relationships with others. How we see ourselves has a large impact on many areas of our lives, such as our attitudes, our behaviors, and even our views of other people. We tend to project our own self-image or our intentions and our own thoughts onto other people. If we're looking at ourselves through a social lens, maybe we're looking at ourselves from what other people see or what we perceive them to see. It's kind of like looking at ourselves through a carnival mirror. We're looking at the nitpicky things and the smaller things, the things that are on the outside rather than on the character on the inside. It talks about Don Quixote and how in the book he starts treating the prostitute as if she weren't, as if for the person that she could be someday, and she begins to see herself as a completely new person. And that made me think of our own conversion with Christ. We were in sin, and then as we started to, or I can talk about myself, as I started to see who I was in Christ, I held myself differently. I realized the blessings and the promises and all that came with who I am in Christ. And now through this class on leadership, I'm beginning to see myself in a whole new light as a different kind of leader than I've ever known before. A lot of concepts that I didn't know before. Now I'm beginning to see those things in my own life and see myself in that new light, and that affects everything, my behavior, my attitude, my outlook. When we're dealing with other people, if we treat them in terms of their potential and who they are, who they could be, then instead of what the outside is looking at, they see that and they respond to that, and sometimes they even become more of who they could be, and that's because other people, including ourselves, have seen them that way. True self-respect comes from dominion over self, and having that willpower and that greatness of character, that is where that true self-respect comes from. At least that's what Stephen Covey talks about. He then goes in to discuss chronic and acute pain. That chronic pain is due to one's own lack of vision, leadership, or management. It's chronic because they get used to it over time. They may even think that it's not noticeable by anybody else, but it's something that they just carry all the time. The acute pain happens when that person begins to see problems within their relationships, and that chronic lack of character start spilling out into those relationships, and they feel that acute pain. But that acuteness comes from, it's a symptom of the chronic pain. And at times they try to look for that quick fix. However, the only antidote is that strength of character or primary greatness. There are 3 essential characteristics for primary greatness. One is integrity, which he defines as the value we place in ourselves. Maturity, which is the balance between courage and consideration. And abundance mentality, where there is plenty out there for everyone instead of that scarcity mentality, having that abundance mentality, and that you can succeed and she can succeed and I can succeed because there's plenty out there for all of us. He goes into an inside out perspective versus an outside looking in perspective. And that inside out is that focus is first on primary greatness of character and making and keeping promises to ourselves before making and keeping those promises to others. And in this section of the book, I have notes all over the margin that it starts with me, my choices in all areas of my life and making those promises. And I was really challenged particularly with something that I've been trying to do, and that is having a consistent exercise regimen for myself. And I have not been keeping that promise to myself, partly because I'm a full-time, I have a full-time job, just like most of us that are in this set of courses. I'm a full-time student. I'm a full-time mom. I have so many responsibilities, and I feel like I'm going 90 to nothing most hours of the day, except for when I'm sleeping, and I feel like I don't have time. However, I'm not being true to that promise of health for my own life, and so that was something that, if I can indulge you on my own personal promises, that's something that I was challenged with in reading this, that I need to keep that promise to myself, that promise to my health and my own well-being before I start looking at anything that goes on the outside. Those with primary greatness show stewardship in all areas of their lives. Their stewardship of time, of their talents, of their money, of their possessions, their relationships, their body, their family, and even their body. They are stewards over all of these things that we have been given by God, and these blessings that we have and these opportunities that we have. And those with primary greatness practice good stewardship over all of these areas. And I'm going to leave you with this quote on page 66. First, work on the programmer if you want to improve the program. You all know that I'm a techno geek, and so this really jumped out at me. If I want to improve that program, which is me, first work on the programmer, work on myself, and not allow other things to try to work on it. That's my work. That's my input into my own life, into my own leadership, and the things that I would like to do and accomplish. So work first on the programmer if you want to improve the program. Thank you.